In 2014, Elizabeth Holmes was on the cover of Forbes. She was hailed as the next Steve Jobs. Her company, Theranos, promised to revolutionize healthcare with just a drop of blood. But behind the black turtleneck and icy stare, a much darker story was brewing. This is the rise and fall of Elizabeth Holmes and how her billion-dollar lie unraveled. At just 19, Elizabeth dropped out of Stanford with a dream. She told professors and investors she'd reinvent blood testing, making it faster, cheaper, and painless. Her pitch was magnetic. She raised hundreds of millions, even with no working product. Everyone wanted to believe in the next tech unicorn. Behind closed doors, the Edison machine, the heart of the Theranos, was a disaster. It gave inaccurate results, sometimes dangerously wrong. Employees raised alarms. But Elizabeth silenced them with NDAs and fear tactics. The truth, there was no breakthrough, just a box that didn't work. The Theranos was built on secrecy. Even senior engineers didn't know how the device really worked. Former employees described it as a pressure cooker, constant surveillance, zero transparency. People were afraid to speak out, until one whistleblower risked everything to tell the truth. In 2015, journalist John Carreyrou published a bombshell report. He revealed that the Theranos had lied about nearly everything. The tech world froze. Elizabeth denied it all on national TV, calm, unwavering. But behind the scenes, the empire was already crumbling. Investors began asking questions. The Theranos dodged with vague answers and cherry-picked data. Major partners like Walgreens grew uneasy. One by one, contracts fell apart. The image of a flawless startup was shattering, and Elizabeth couldn't hold it together much longer. In 2018, the Securities and Exchange Commission charged Elizabeth Holmes with fraud. They alleged she misled investors, patients, and the media. She stepped down as CEO, but still denied wrongdoing. The charges rocked Silicon Valley. A startup that once promised hope had become a symbol of deception. After years of delays, the trial of Elizabeth Holmes began in 2021. Prosecutors painted her as a calculated fraudster. Her defense that she was misled by others, including her former lover and COO, Sunny Balwani. Inside the courtroom, the once iconic founder looked smaller, human. The public watched every moment. Elizabeth claimed she was abused and manipulated by Balwani, both professionally and personally. Texts and emails suggested a toxic dynamic. Her lawyers said she was trapped in a world she didn't control. But prosecutors pushed back. Was she a victim or the mastermind? In January 2022, the jury reached a verdict. Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty on 4 counts of fraud. She now faces over 11 years in prison. Once a tech icon, now a cautionary tale. And the question lingers, how did so many smart people fall for it? Thousands of patients trusted the Theranos with their health. Misdiagnoses ranged from false HIV positives to cancer scares. Real lives were shaken, some permanently changed. This wasn't just a business scandal, it was personal. And the damage can't be undone. In a separate trial, Sunny Balwani faced similar charges. Unlike Holmes, he showed no emotion in court. He was convicted on all counts. Prosecutors argued he helped orchestrate the fraud and enforce the silence. Together they built the Theranos, together they fell. The Theranos wasn't just one bad apple. It was a symptom of a culture obsessed with disruption and speed. Investors skipped due diligence. Media crowned Elizabeth a visionary too early. Everyone wanted the next big thing, even if it wasn't real. In May 2023, Elizabeth Holmes began serving her sentence in Texas. She now lives a far cry from the boardrooms of Palo Alto. Her legacy is stained, but some still believe she meant well. Was she a fraud or a failed visionary? History will decide. The story of the Theranos is more than a downfall, it's a warning. about unchecked ambition, about blind faith in charisma over proof. Today, startups are still chasing disruption. But now the ghost of Elizabeth Holmes haunts every pitch. Truth, it turns out, can't be faked forever. Inside the Theranos, smoke and mirrors were part of the daily routine. Fake demos impressed investors. Test results were secretly run on traditional machines. Employees were told to stage innovation, not deliver it. It was a theater of tech performed with precision. Elizabeth idolized Steve Jobs down to the black turtlenecks and controlled image. She studied how he moved, spoke, even how he launched products. But imitation without innovation is just theater. She built a brand, not a breakthrough. And the difference was deadly. Before the truth broke, the media couldn't get enough of Elizabeth Holmes. She graced covers, sat on panels, and gave polished TED Talks. Reporters rarely asked hard questions. In the frenzy for a female tech icon, skepticism took a backseat. She wasn't just enabled by silence, but celebrated by it. Without the whistleblowers, the Theranos might still be a myth. People like Tyler Schultz and Erica Chung took enormous risks. They faced lawsuits, threats, and emotional fallout. But they chose truth over fear. Their voices cracked the facade and changed Silicon Valley forever. Today, every pitch deck, every biotech startup carries the shadow of the Theranos. Investors ask tougher questions. Regulators take earlier action. And founders learn ambition must be anchored in truth. Elizabeth Holmes didn't just lose a company, she reshaped an industry's conscience. In Silicon Valley, personality often trumps product. Charisma opens doors faster than code or proof. Elizabeth mastered this art. Her deep voice, intense stare, and messianic tone weren't accidental. She curated every detail, until the image outgrew the substance behind it. Silence was one of Elizabeth's most powerful weapons. She rarely explained, she didn't defend, she stared. The less she said, the more people projected. In boardrooms and interviews, that silence created myth. But eventually, silence stopped working. The Theranos' victims weren't just investors or journalists. They were people misdiagnosed, mistreated, or dismissed. Many remain unnamed, silent casualties of tech hubris. Their stories didn't make headlines, but their pain is part of this legacy too. The Theranos scandal didn't end in court, it became pop culture. Documentaries, podcasts, and even a Hulu series brought it to screens. Amanda Seyfried won awards playing Elizabeth. And suddenly, the fraudster became a character. But between the drama, the real damage can't be scripted. The Theranos is gone, but the conditions that made it possible still exist. Startups still chase hype. Founders still blur lines between vision and truth. The next Holmes might already be out there, pitching, raising, promising. Will we catch it in time, or will we fall for the story again? Elizabeth Holmes's voice became a trademark, low, deliberate, almost hypnotic. But former classmates said it wasn't always that deep. Some believe it was part of her crafted persona, a vocal mask to command power in a male-dominated world. The performance ran deeper than most realized. Elizabeth grew up in a family that valued success and legacy. Her father worked in government agencies, her mother pushed for excellence. She was told she could be great. But greatness without guidance can become obsession. The Theranos wasn't born in a vacuum, it was born from pressure. Experts warned early on biotech doesn't move at startup speed. Former lab directors raised red flags. One even quit publicly. But investors didn't listen. When profit speaks loud, truth gets drowned out. Let's rewind. One drop of blood. One dream. One woman convincing the world she could change everything. She climbed Forbes lists, rubbed shoulders with presidents. Billionaires backed her. But what they bought was a story, not science. The Theranos taught us what not to build. But it also revealed what we must demand: transparency, patience, and ethics in innovation. The next breakthrough won't come from charisma. It'll come from science, integrity, and teams brave enough to say, it's not ready yet. Real innovation takes time and truth. Today, business schools teach the Theranos as a case study in ethics. Elizabeth Holmes went from icon to warning label. Her story is dissected not for innovation, but for illusion. Future founders are learning from her missteps. Because behind every great pitch, there must be truth. What if the tech had worked? What if one drop really could have saved lives? Would we be telling this story or building statues? In another timeline, she might be a hero. But ambition without results is just fantasy, especially in medicine. Before prison, Holmes lived quietly in California. She had 2 children. Some said she was preparing for a comeback. But time ran out. The woman who once stood on global stages now walks fenced yards in federal custody. The Theranos isn't just a scandal, it's a mirror. It shows us what happens when charisma outpaces caution. This wasn't just Elizabeth Holmes's fall. It was our failure to ask, to check, to doubt. Subscribe now because the next great pitch might sound perfect until it is.